9 nominees walk into a ring and only one can come out without blood and things over them. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Death.
Stay tuned. We're talking about Best Picture on Screen Junkies News. Today's episode of Screen Junkies News is brought to you by the Uncarrier, introducing T-Mobile One, all unlimited, all in. I'm Alicia Malone. I obviously know nothing about boxing, but I do know about Oscars, Roth Cornet.
But you probably do know about the Thunderdome, right?
The Thunderdome.
I like that the idea that the Academy Awards became the Thunderdome. That's how we should decide, people. We're doing it wrong.
That is how we should decide. But we're talking about Best Picture, which is the biggest category at the Oscars, the one that every movie wants to win because it does bring with it a lot of gravitas and box office and money.
Money is definitely one of the goals.
Opportunities for the people involved. So let's run through the nominees at this year's Oscars for Best Picture. You have Arrival, and then Fences, and then Hacksaw Ridge, also Hell or High Water, Hidden Figures, La La Land, Lion, Manchester by the Sea, and Moonlight. Great movies there, Roth. What are your thoughts?
So we've been talking about this for the past week, and if you guys haven't seen, you should go check out our predictions leading to this point in the other large categories, because we probably said a lot of the things that we will just quickly hit on here. Look, it's La La Land. No, there's just no denying it. It's La La Land, PGA, Golden Globe, BAFTA. It's La La Land. La La Land's going to win.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Producers Guild Award that you look to when you're trying to predict Best Picture.
Yes.
Traditionally, that is the one that goes on to win the Oscar. And this year, the PGA went to La La Land. I was wondering whether anything would change given the state of the world at the moment, that it might go for something a bit more serious or something that speaks more to current experiences that people are having in the world. But La La Land is a love letter to Hollywood.
Yeah.
And definitely the Academy loves movies about Hollywood. And it's beautiful. I mean, I am against all this backlash towards it. It's a lovely movie.
It's certainly, it is.
Well done.
It's absolutely a well done, lovely movie, 100%. And it's funny, and I keep saying percentages, and I think that's because our own Dan Merle did a video breaking down the statistics of La La Land's chances based on its similarity with other films.
Right.
Films that had been nominated for the most amount of Oscars in their year, musicals, films about Hollywood. And it is sort of, if you look at all of the different elements that La La Land has in common, it is absolutely the front runner to win, just based alone on the fact that it is a love letter to Hollywood, the content, exactly.
It has been a long time since musicals have been nominated, though, so that does make it unique. And it now is tied with All About Eve and Titanic for the most amount of nominations ever.
Which is interesting, because that's one of the statistics that jumped out to me, because All About Eve, though it's not directly about Hollywood, it's certainly about show business.
Yeah,
and that happens to be one of my favorite movies of all time. And you should see it, because it is Bette Davis at her very Bette Davis-est. And buckle in, it's going to be a bumpy night. It's unlikely for La La Land to be unseated at this point, but I think you do raise an interesting point. Voting is still open as we record this video. By the time this video goes up, it'll be closed, I believe. But in that time, there has been a bit of a backlash against La La Land, as you mentioned. Deservedly or not, it's a great movie still, but there has been a bit of a backlash. There's also the climate that we're in has sort of like intensified over the last several months. So it's possible that you're right, that they may go for a film that feels more aligned with where we are right now.
Yeah.
Which movie do you think then would get it?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I think you've got something like Moonlight,
right,
which, like we were saying in previous videos, smashes a lot of stereotypes and does something completely different by showing a character that doesn't normally get screen time. And then you also have Hidden Figures, which is such an inspirational story. It's very powerful in terms of women, particularly women of color, and it won the SAG for the best performance by an ensemble cast. And I think that is an incredible award for it to win. And then you have things like Hacksaw Ridge, for example, which is about a war hero and a great American that people definitely want to celebrate as we look to what America actually means at the moment. You got Arrival, which is all about communication with other countries.
And learning to connect with those that it may be. And this is probably, I think, one of the
differences between people or even aliens and humans. There's so many lines you could draw there.
Sure, because I think it's a movie that is ultimately probably one, that's a message that we need more than anything, which is it's about how to connect with those that it's very difficult to connect with.
Yeah.
Not necessarily
where you have a language barrier,
where you have, or any kind of barrier, a communication barrier, whether it's a language barrier or whether it's a barrier in terms of point of view, and that how easy misunderstandings can happen and how dangerous they are when they are
misconstrued. Yeah. La La Land for me is the one that's going to get it based on all the awards that it's won so far. The one I wouldn't be surprised it might unseat it is Moonlight, but remains to be seen. We asked for our poll results on Facebook. We put out a poll of who you guys think will win Best Picture. There were all the nominees side by side. We tallied the votes, and the winner is Arrival. The most amount of people said Arrival should win or will win Best Picture, followed by Hidden Figures, then Moonlight, then Manchester by the Sea, then Fences, then Hacksaw Ridge, Lion, and then Hell or High Water. And looking at some of the comments, there was one trend that kept happening over and over again in the comments, and I picked out Sam Anderson in particular, but it says Hacksaw Ridge. There were so many comments just saying Hacksaw Ridge, Hacksaw Ridge, Hacksaw Ridge. It has a lot of love, this movie. And like I said, it's about a great war hero. He was a pacifist. He went into war without wanting to use any weapons. Shot in Australia with a lot of Australian actors, but is definitely telling this American story. For me, Hacksaw Ridge felt like a bit of a TV movie in the way that it was directed. And I thought that the violence it crossed the line to be reveling in the violence, really enjoying what it was portraying in terms of violence and slow motion and headshots and all that stuff, when the message it was making was about pacifism. So I thought that to me just didn't sit quite right. It is really well made, and the acting is top notch, but in terms of the violence and I'd say the religious aspect, to me, just it felt very much like a message movie rather than telling a complete story about this guy. He seemed like he had no fuzzy edges, that he was just perfect in every single way.
I think that Hacksaw Ridge, I know that you feel that way about the war sequences. I disagree. I never felt that, oh, this is really celebrating the violence and this is really glorying in it. I always felt that those sequences were very well done. I thought they were harsh and brutal. I thought, if anything, they really portrayed the hell of war and made it look abhorrent. If anything, I thought that it sort of was a great film to say, let's not do this, because this is really what that would look like, and this is how horrific it is. So I kind of don't agree with that in terms of those sequences, which I did think were really well directed. I know that was the trend in the comments, but a couple of people mentioned Hell or High Water, which I would say, harkening back to our earlier conversation, I just want to talk about. I'm sneaking in talking about Hell or High Water a little bit because it's one of my favorite films of this year.
Yeah, me too.
And talking about what we were talking about in terms of understanding and representation in film, which this is a great list for that, because Hell or High Water, I think, also represents a part of the United States that we don't see very often, that probably feels unheard, that has suffered under the weight of economic pressures, and that we should see that, and that should also be in film. It's beautiful, this list, if you think about it in that respect.
Yeah,
Lion, Manchester, Moonlight. It's so many different stories and so many different lives that are being exposed here. And when you walk away, and this is going to sound very corny, and I don't care, but when you walk away from all of them, you just see how much you have in common and how connected you are and how your humanity is just the same.
Yeah.
Right? Human.
We're all
Arrival.
human. Human.
But Zachary Cullen said Moonlight or La La Land. And Zachary, I agree. I think it's probably going to go to La La Land. But I sort of did a big pitch for Moonlight in our best director videos. So I'm going to ask you guys to go to watch that if you don't mind, because I don't want to do it all again. But I will say this is one of the most extraordinary films that I've seen in the last several years. It's unlike any other film I've seen in many, many years, maybe ever in some regards. It's gorgeous. I love this movie, and I would love to see it win.
Yeah, me too.
But I do think it'll be La La Land, which is also okay.
Both the films I love, so I wouldn't be upset if either of them
No.
won. But we think it's
celebration
going to
of
be La La
movies.
Land celebration. Our poll results say Arrival. We'll see what happens. Roth, Cornet, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And let us know in the comments below what you guys think. Who would you love to see take Best Picture from that list? Or who do you think will win Best Picture? Write it below and we'll take a look, and we'll see you soon. Bye. We'd like to thank our sponsor, T-Mobile. T-Mobile One is all unlimited, all in. Switch today.